there have been a number of high-profile bills with either party in charge that have moved in a partisan way, and then we end up sort of relitigating, whether that be the Affordable Care Act or the tax reform bill. You know, bills that were not developed in a bipartisan way, were not passed in a bipartisan way, and then you see this sort of years of relitigation. And I think for the everyday American, they look at that and say, you know, what a crap show, right? That doesn't seem like how things ought to be working. You know, I think too much legislative time is spent on things that seem more designed to make a statement than to make a law. And that's not on the media, right? That's on Congress in the aggregate. Part of my excitement about working with Rodney on the Select Committee on about every 20 or 30 years, Congress realizes things aren't working the way they ought to, and they create a committee to look at fixing it. And this year's committee is called the Select Committee on the Modernization of Congress. But we've been tasked with looking at a lot of those structural issues, including the rules, some of the rules that may impede bipartisanship, the loss of capacity within the legislative branch, where you've seen such extraordinary turnover of staff, as an example, that as a consequence of that, what fills that void is the executive branch and lobbyists. And that doesn't serve the interests of the American people. And so a lot of what we're working on is trying to figure out, how do you pull some of those levers to have Congress as an institution simply function better on behalf of the American people? If and when that happens, and if we're successful in moving, stay tuned, because we're working on a bunch of good stuff, including next week, we're hoping to move out about a couple dozen recommendations on that front. I think the hope is maybe if you just fix some of this stuff within the institution, Congress starts to, it stops underperforming. And then maybe some of that political polarization, it's a lot easier to say, well, let's just blow it all up when the everyday American doesn't feel like it's working for them. And you know, we're at a time where Congress is, according to polling, held in lower regard than head lice and colonoscopies, right? And that, and too often Congress earns those ratings.